Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to our presentation to learn about Japanese culture. My name is Yuuri. These are my co-presenters, Yumi and Nanako. By the way, what do you know about Japanese language? Nothing. Okay. We will explain that. It is rich and interesting. It includes long history and peculiar characteristics. Also, it is very interesting to learn about foreign loan words of Japanese language. Today, we would like to talk about Japanese language from various aspects. I will describe Japanese language. Then Yumi will explain the history of foreign loan words. Finally, Nanako will tell you about foreign loan words in practice. Through this presentation, you will learn the complex nature of Japanese language and the global implication of Japanese language. Now, let me begin. Before my co-presenters tell you about foreign loan words, I want you to know Japanese language is remarkable and complex. I have 3 topics. They are history, features, and current problems with Japanese language. I will start by the history of Japanese language. Japanese language has long history. The origin of Japanese language is believed that it is Celtic language. Celtic language is the language of Celtic people who are horsemen living in the plain of Central Asia. In the map, Celtic is pink area. Japan is here. In old time, Celtic people immigrated to many places. They went to Europe, they went to Korea, they also came to Japanese islands. In Old Japanese, the features of Celtic language are found like verb forms. Next, I will tell you about the history of writing systems. The first writing system of Japanese language is kanji. Kanji came to Japan from China at the end of 3rd century. At that time, Japan had a relationship with China. China introduced lots of Chinese culture like system of government and economy to Japan. However, there are big problems. Japanese language and Chinese language have different grammar systems. For example, in Japanese, we put predicate at the end of sentence. On the other hand, in Chinese, they put predicate after subject, like English. If you remember the English grammar, you can imagine easily. So it was very difficult to write and read kanji in Japanese grammar systems. Because of the difficulties, katakana was created at 7th century. Buddhist priests used katakana to write and read religious texts. Look at the list. Left is katakana, right is kanji. Red part shows katakana. So it means katakana was made from a part of kanji. But at that time, the writing of Japanese people were messy, so kanji and katakana looked very similar. To distinguish between kanji and katakana, hiragana was created at 8th century. As you can see, kanji is upper side and hiragana is bottom. Hiragana was made to simplify from hiragana. At that time, women of high status used hiragana to write poems, stories, and diaries. Our next group will explain a story written in hiragana later. In present time, we still use the 3 scripts, kanji, katakana, and hiragana. Kanji is used to write specific words like verb, noun, adverb, adjective. Hiragana is used to write foreign loanwords and onomatopoetic words like noise and bark of animals. Hiragana is used to write other words like particle, and hiragana can be written for everything. Look at the sentence. From this sentence, you can understand we mix the three scripts in one sentence. It's surprising, isn't it? Now, I will move on the features of Japanese language. There are many interesting features in Japanese language. First, Japanese sentence doesn't have any spaces between each word. Compare these two sentences, Japanese sentence and English sentence. You can see there is no space in Japanese sentence. You may wonder if it's hard to read without space, but in fact, it's not hard. As I said, we have three scripts, and kanji shows important words, so three scripts makes us too easy to read. Second, there are many harmonies in Japanese language. Harmonies means the words which have same sounds and different meanings. Here is an example. We have the word mushi. Mushi has three meanings in Japanese language. First, insect. Second, ignore. Third, steam. You can see there is different kanji in each mushi. Each kanji has different meanings, so we can recognize which the meanings by kanji. Now, I've talked about Japanese written language. Now, I want to tell you about Japanese spoken language. Honorific towns are very important in Japanese society. We use honorific towns to show respect with boss and trading partners in business situations and older people. Also, part-time job workers use them with customers. If we don't use honorifics in that kind of situations, it will be a very big problem. It is very important. It is very impolite and rude not to use honorifics. Finally, I will explain current problems with Japanese language. There are some problems with Japanese language recently. First, many young people can't use correct honorifics. For example, many part-time job workers make mistakes about honorifics. Also, we often hear newscasters making mistakes about honorifics. Second, there are many abbreviations in Japanese language. Here is an example. We have the word keitai denwa, which means cell phone. Nowadays, we call keitai denwa keitai, removing denwa, which means phone. Young people make abbreviations, then next generation know that kind of abbreviations. Then they think that is the original Japanese words. That is the problem. Third, many foreign loan words come to Japan. We have the word identity borrowed from English. Many Japanese people don't know the exact meaning of foreign loan words, but they use, so the meaning of the speech and sentence become illogical. My co-presenter will explain foreign loan words in more detail. In my conclusion, Japanese language has long history. And the background made interesting features which are very different from other languages. Also, there are some problems with Japanese language recently. So I think from Japanese language, we can learn not only Japanese language system, but also Japanese culture and Japanese society. I wish you got the enough basic information of Japanese language. Now, Yumi will explain the history of foreign loanwords.
Thank you, Yuuri. As Yuuri said, I will discuss the very fascinating history of foreign loanwords. Do you know when is the beginning of foreign loanwords in Japan? Foreign loanwords also has a long history. I hope you will be interested in another aspect of Japanese language. At the beginning, I would like to show you the contents of my presentation. First, I'm going to tell you about history of foreign loanwords from Europe. After that, we will be taking a look at the history of loanwords from America. Finally, I will move on to Japanese attitude. At the beginning, I would like to start by the definition of foreign loanwords. Foreign loanwords came from foreign countries and came to be used in Japanese language. Do you use the words calories and hot dog? Yes. Of course you do. Did you know that Japanese people use these words too? Japan has a lot of foreign loanwords, and most of them had a big influence from Europe and America. How about Chinese? In old times, we borrow many words from Chinese. They are called Japanese words of Chinese origin, and they are not considered foreign loanwords. I would like to tell you about history of foreign loanwords from Europe. The first wave of foreign loanwords into Japan was 16th century. In 1543, Portuguese people came to Japan. After that, Francisco Xavier, who was Christian, came to Japan and spread Christianity as a missionary. Therefore, in this time, trade terms and religious terms spread in Japan. About 4,500 loanwords from the Bible were introduced into Japanese language. Here are examples. We borrowed tempura and tobacco as a trade terms. These are the famous words which came from Portuguese at this time. We also borrowed charidade and churindude as a Christian words. The second wave of foreign loanwords into Japan was is when Japan closed the country to foreigners except the Dutch. The Dutch were the only trade partner with Japan for 200 years. We borrowed not only the name of things, but also academic and scientific words. For example, there are astronomy, geography, and natural history as a scientific terms. The Dutch were remarkable in medical science. Most of the basic medical technical terms came into Japan at this time. For example, we use the words such as alkaline and alcohol. After Edo times, it became Meiji era from the 19th to 20th centuries. A lot of foreign loanwords came into Japan at this time. We borrowed art terms from French and fashion terms from Italy and Russia. They came to be used in daily conversation at this time. We used words such as mama for mother and papa for father. It helped to open country more to foreign trade and diplomatic relations. Now, let's look at the history of foreign loanwords from America. During World War II, in the first half of the 20th century, America and Japan were fighting against each other. Therefore, foreign loanwords were held in disdain. So as time passed, foreign loanwords were banned by the government and military. Japan had a time when foreign loanwords were completely wiped out. Japanese forces tried to translate all foreign loanwords into kanji at this time, but this plan didn't work very well. There were a lot of translation problems. They called saxophone, metal curve shakuhachi. Shakuhachi means Japanese fruit. They called kangaroo, mouse with pouch. It was really strange, wasn't it? Finally, Japanese people embraced foreign loanwords after the war and when American forces occupied Japan. As a result of cultural influence from the United States, Japanese word changed remarkably. About 19% of foreign loanwords recorded in today's Japanese dictionary, about 30,000 words are borrowed from American English. American culture and words are filtering into Japanese heart. Now, I will move on to Japanese attitude. Why foreign loanwords so commonly used in Japan? There are two reasons. First, Japanese don't have appropriate Japanese to explain the words from another culture. Second, Japanese people think many things from foreign country are fashionable. Therefore, media and business are using a lot of foreign loanwords to appeal to people. This is an example. If you go to cosmetic section in Japan, you will see many foreign loanwords. This is an example of cosmetic advertisement. You can see how many foreign loanwords we use in one advertisement. 24 loanwords in this picture. Other example is movie titles. We call Avatar in Japanese. We often use original title. In conclusion, the Japanese has a lot of foreign loanwords which were politically and historically influenced by many countries. I think if we are interested in another culture and language, the words can cross the border easily. As you can see, the closer relationship between countries becomes, the more words we mutually learn. We cannot suppress this flow. Nanako will tell you about more examples of foreign loanwords. I hope my presentation will be useful to understand the Nanako's presentation.
Thank you, Yumi. Now I will talk about foreign loanwords in practice. Language is necessary for human life. It affects our life in good ways and bad ways. Tonight, I have three topics. First, kinds of loanwords. Second, Japanese words in English. Third, problems with foreign loanwords. Let's move on to kinds of loanwords. There are four kinds of loanwords. First one is pronunciation. The biggest differences between Japanese and English is pronunciation. Japan has only 5 vowels, such as a, I, U, E, O. On the other hand, English has 17 vowel sounds. The number is many, isn't it? So, some consonant and vowel in English don't exist in Japanese. These words are represented by the nearest sound in Japanese. For example, we don't have T, R, S, V sound. T sound became Chi, R became L, S became S, V became B. So we call it chiketto. Chiketto, radio, thrill, ban. Second one is shortened loanwords. Why people use shortened loanwords? Because these words are very efficient.
So they pick up foreign loanwords more and more. For example, personal computer. If I said personal computer in katakana pronunciation, personal computer, Japanese people pick up the only capital letter P and C or clip the word paso and con. So we call it PC or pasokon instead of personal computer. Third one is different meaning. For example, mansion. American image of mansion is this picture. It is a big fancy house and only one family live in this house. How about Japanese image? What do you think? It's just apartment. Many families live in this building together. Next example is American people call this picture ice cream, but we call ice cream ice. If I ask ice in America, I can get ice cubes. So during my homestay, I said to my host mother, I want to eat ice. But my host mother gave me just ice cubes. Honestly, I wanted to eat ice cream. Next one is American image of high tension is this picture. It means high blood pressure. But Japanese image of high tension is really different. It's people who feel excited. I said to my teacher, I am high tension. But my teacher was surprised to hear that and worried about me because they thought I had high blood pressure. Fourth kind of loanwords is combining words. For example, cream pan. Have you ever heard cream pan? No? It's custard bread. Cream came from English, pan came from Portuguese. Pan means bread. But we use them at the same time, even if these words came from different countries. So some foreign people who live in Japan will be confused by these words. Let's move on Japanese words in English. You know some of our traditional words such as judo and sushi and tsunami. Let's take the word of tsunami. Before the word of tsunami was used, a tidal wave was used instead of tsunami. But tidal wave means just wave. It didn't have exact meaning. In 1946, a big wave attacked Hawaii. At that time, Japanese Americans lived in Hawaii. Then they call it, oh, that is tsunami. Then the word of tsunami was written in the newspaper and spread to America and all over the world. So now, tsunami is world language. Finally, I will talk about problems with loaned words. Young people have better skill to adapt new culture. They pick up foreign loanwords more and more. On the other hand, older people feel it is difficult to pronounce foreign loanwords. So it will be difficult for young people to communicate with older people. Next problem is students. The student who study English or Japanese will be confused by different pronunciations and different meanings. To master these languages, we have to study and understand foreign loanwords completely. Also, foreign loanwords became an obstacle for pronouncing because we think all foreign loanwords has correct pronunciation with English. So it's very difficult for us to change the correct pronunciation after learning foreign loanwords in Japan. Another problem is some of our traditional words are fading out because of foreign loanwords. For example, 喫茶店
and koyomi. Kissaten became cafe and koyomi became calendar. My parents' generation used these words, but now we don't often use these words. As a conclusion, through the research into the foreign loanwords, I found Japanese culture is not strictly Japanese. We have a flexibility to adapt everything, not only foreign loanwords, such as ideas, goods, and religion. We use them as if they are all Japanese culture. However, this flexibility reflects Japan in not only good ways. We throw away our weak points easily and take good points from other countries without hesitation. This is our country, Japan. As a whole group conclusion, Japanese language has various interesting features such as 3 scripts, honorific terms, and writing system. It has a long history, then it affected by other countries. However, our traditional aspects still underlying firmly. So, Japanese culture and other country cultures has been mixed each other. That's why Japanese is a profound and global language.
This concludes our presentation. I hope it was of any help to you to have a better understanding of Japanese culture and language. Does anyone have any questions?
Nothing? Yes.
Is there a word for foreign words in Japanese?
The question is, are there any words for foreign loan words? The answer is we call foreign loan words gairaigo. Gai means foreign. Rai means came from. Yeah, and go is words. So it's simple. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, please.
In English, we're starting to use some old-fashioned words again. I'll see people write amongst instead of among, or whilst instead of while. Do you think young people in Japan like to use old-fashioned words too?
Do young people in Japan like to use old-fashioned words?
The question is, Japanese young people use old-fashioned foreign.
Do they like to use old-fashioned words?
The question is, Japanese people use old-fashioned words? The answer is no. Young people try to foreign loan words because the foreign loan words to show foreign loan words can catch attention for people, so it can be cool. So young people try to foreign loan words more. Yes, please.
I know that in Japan, on clothing they always have English, but it's very poorly written. But have you seen the same in America, like Japanese on American clothing?
Yes. The question is, have I ever seen the clothes which has incorrect Japanese word? Japan. I saw the T-shirts. It's written "daidokoro," which means kitchen. So maybe the man thought kanji is very fashionable and cool, but maybe he didn't know exact meaning, so I was surprised.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you for listening.